Hello, pet enthusiasts. Welcome to PetChat. We are triple casting across 3 different audio platforms. Right now, we're on Twitter Spaces, Wisdom, and Clubhouse. Christine is on Clubhouse. Christine Young is an expert dog trainer. She's going to talk to us today about dog myths and pet training tips for if you have questions. You'll hear her voice on Twitter and Wisdom coming through my profile, but it's all synced together and it should all work seamlessly. It's a great big multi-chat between all the 3 different platforms. So for the first little bit, we're just going to have a little chat about dog myths. And then if you have questions, Christine, I think we chatted. You're okay with taking a few questions.
Yes, that's my favorite part.
I know. I love that part too. I learned so much. So first off, Christine, thank you so much for coming back for round 2 of Pet Chat with us on the triple cast going on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Normally I quadcast to LinkedIn, but I didn't promote this space on LinkedIn. So we're just doing a triple cast today. But linking 3 together is pretty good. You said you moved to a new space. Is this a new development or was this happening last time?
I was in process last time.
Okay. All right.
I'm not fully unpacked, but I'm in my new space.
You know, I think it takes years to fully unpack.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
We lived in a little trailer for many years we live on a farm, right? And then as a young couple, my wife and I saved up money and we afforded to build a house, and we moved just like over where the house was being built. And it still took years for us to unpack. It's just the thing. Okay. So let's do a little quick recap. For those of you who missed our first chat with Christine, could you give us a little Cole's notes about your background just for people who are tuning in for the first time?
Sure. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
So I am a certified dog trainer and I specialize with puppies and recall training, which is getting your dog to come when called the first time. And we talked about recall last time, so people can go back to your recording if they want to learn more about that.
Mm-hmm. That is somewhere on Twitter, I know, and I think it's going to be on the Science Pod. I think I put it on the Science Podcast feed. If I was a more organized person, I would have that link ready. I apologize. I don't know was that recorded on Clubhouse in the Dog Lovers Club?
Yes.
Okay.
It's in the replays just below if you're in Clubhouse.
That's right. So folks on Clubhouse, you probably have better access to that, and that's all good. So the other question I have for you, Christine, I don't know if you mentioned this in your intro. How long have you been doing this dog training thing?
I have been a professional dog trainer for the last 8 years. I was a horse trainer before that. So I've been training animals for about 25 years.
Have you ever had to train an exotic animal like horses, dogs? Did you ever have to train
the only one that my friend who was a vet that I didn't necessarily train. I got to work with my friend who was a vet who owned camels. So that was pretty cool.
Oh my goodness. You got to work with camels?
Yes.
Are they as stubborn as the stereotype is?
No.
No?
And that
Okay.
word drives me crazy.
Oh, right. We can't use the S word. That's right.
Determined. Not stubborn.
They're that's the stereotype I've heard is they're so determined. But no, not in your experience.
No, and again, I didn't work with them too much. It was just a fun thing that I was lucky to have a friend who was a vet that had camels.
I would love to work with seals because they look like dogs of the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think they are. I think I asked a biologist once and they laughed at me. They're like, no, they're a different evolutionary pathway. I was like, okay, you can't just let me have this one. They do look like dogs that live in the ocean. So anyways, Christine, the intro that we're going to talk about is dog myths. Before we get to questions from the audience, what are some of the dog myths that are, aside from the stubborn word, which I shouldn't have said, I'm sorry about that. What are some of the actually I can use it here. What are some of the stubborn dog myths that don't seem to go away?
Exactly. Because they are sticky, and no matter the industry, there's so much outdated information, and so many of us believe these myths are true, and it's not surprising because we're in this post-truth era. And we all have so much access to information. So it was really hard for me to choose what in the dog world to talk about. And I decided to focus in for sure on behavior things because there's so many food dog myths and, there's just in every different part of the pet industry. But the 3 I'm hoping we can touch on, and the first 2 won't take too long, but the third one's a big one. So I want to talk about my dog looks guilty. That is a myth. I want to talk about the idea of punishing puppies for potty training. It's a myth that you should punish a dog who goes to the bathroom in the house. And then, of course, the big one is, can you guess the big one?
No, I don't know where we're going. I'm excited, though.
The alpha dog or dominant dog.
Oh, yeah, you got to be the alpha. Yes.
And again, that's a huge one where we might want to do a whole separate room on it, because it's a big conversation, but I'll try to do like a little condensed version to get us started, and we can see what people have additional questions on and things like that.
I love it. Thank you, Christine. Go ahead.
So the first one that I want to talk about is that idea that my dog looks guilty. And so we've all come home and found our dog has either chewed up something favorite of ours, escaped out of an area, got into the trash, had a potty accident. Has this ever happened to you, Jason?
Yes. Bunsen was for the most part, a very good boy. He didn't really wreck stuff. But Beaker, if you leave any food in your pockets, like if you have treats in your pocket that you're training with, and you say you take your shorts off and you forget that they're on the floor, she'll eat the pockets right out of it. And she's eaten a few shoes. So it's all our fault. Like we should,
right.
It's 100% our fault.
Right. I love that attitude where rather than getting upset about pockets that are destroyed, to make sure that we pick them up is the key thing. But it's not surprising that we assume if we come home to these things that the guilty look that we see, people assume their dogs are guilty for that behavior, that we put them in the position to have that behavior happen. And what we're seeing is what we call appeasement behaviors. And some of the common appeasement behaviors are ears back or flat, a whale eye, avoiding eye contact, lower body postures. And when we say things like, Fido, why did you do this? You know better. They don't know better. Their dog's trying to get their needs met.
And they just look sad, and they look kind of scared at you.
Yeah.
I think I've raised my voice to one of our dogs at least once, and I felt like a giant tool after I did it too.
And we all do. We're human, right? That happens. But once we understand that they have no concept of being guilty for a past behavior, that's just something that dogs do. They like food. They like to get food out of pockets anywhere they can find it. Once we understand that it's always our fault, we can kind of change our attitude, and our dogs will offer these behaviors in hopes of nothing bad happening to them. And they're diffusing the tension in hopes of us not being so threatening. And just depending on the sensitivity of our voice. And I have a very anxious, sensitive boy that he's taught me so much about how important it is to be sensitive to any dog. But when you have a dog that's super sensitive, Pico's ears are back a lot of the time. Not when I come home and he sees me, because I don't get upset with him when I come home, but out and about when he's in new environments and is unsure, he will offer the same appeasement behaviors in hopes of nothing bad happening to him. And so when we come home and we assume that that you often will see a TikTok or something where people will say, look at Fido, he knows he's guilty. He knows he did that. And as trainers, we just really enjoy sharing with people and having people share with each other that they're not guilty at all. And the more that we can pay attention to what we need to do to set them up for success. And again, this is a trainer thing, that once you learn how sensitive they are and how much you can do to create great behavior, if we're all human and make mistakes. And so I'm sure I've come home to, enrichment in particular is something that I provide Pico with a lot. And I have spaces that I provide it for him to get to it, and I cue him to get it. And if I get too busy and things get too messy, Pico will go find his own enrichment and will tear up something that wasn't exactly enrichment, or I didn't want him to have it at the time.
Oh, yeah.
And the tendency on my part would be like, why did you get into that? But as soon as I turn and have that, luckily I have that red flag of like, oh, why did I leave that there? Why am I too busy? And what I'll do is I will actually use it as a cue to kind of get down on the floor, clean it, and have fun with him. So there's no connection to me being the one who made the mistake and just randomly being upset with my dog, because it is very random. If he got into that enrichment a half an hour ago and I come into the next room and go, oh my goodness, why did I leave that there? It's always my fault. And when we blame it on the dog, there's no connection. And that can really lessen the connection and trust that the dog has with you.
I love that. Thanks for explaining that. Our two dogs that we have now, Bunsen and Beaker, are very different. Bunsen is so sensitive, like any kind of like look at his way or raising your voice at him. And he just wrecks you. Like he's so sensitive for such a big guy. So that's something that we have to be really careful, I think, about as dog owners, is that we don't get mad at our dogs for things that they can't comprehend that we would get mad at them about, I guess.
Yeah. And I just like to encourage people to use it as a red flag for, what can I do? What 5 or 10 minutes can I do to make the situation better?
Yeah.
And so often with our busy lives, we don't meet our dog's needs and they get into the trash because we haven't taken them out for a safari to use that nose and find things in the environment to enjoy. And so getting them out for that safari before we go, they're less likely to get in the trash. And of course, putting the lid on the trash that they can't open, putting the trash behind a locked cabinet door, depending on how aggressive and how habitual your dog is with this. There's so many things that we can do. So when these things happen, and they will, instead of getting upset, use that as a red flag to, what do I need to do to prevent this from happening next time?
Yeah, that's such a good point, Christine. Thank you.
Sure.
Our dog trainer said the same thing. Our first golden was a bit of a counter surfer, and it was just so simple. Well, don't have food left out. Like
Right.
if you don't want your dog to get things off the counter, then maybe you shouldn't have food on the counter, like take away part of it, the problem. And
what's nice is, because no one wants to take away food and have the kitchen spick and span clean all the time, that new dog, that new household, take it away for a period of time so the habit of the dog wanting to get to it is never tempting.
Yeah.
And the more that you give them the opportunity to succeed and feed them in places that they know they can get food, you don't have to do it lifelong. You need to do it in the beginning.
I love it. Great point. Okay. So dogs aren't guilty. That's a great myth. Or we don't. And
we're going to elaborate on the punishing for potty, because
Yes.
so often as people are going through potty training, when they're, especially like as their dog gets better at it and then they come home and their dog has gone to the bathroom, there's such a tendency to be like, why did you do this?
Mm-hmm.
And it's so important that we understand that accidents inside are not because our dogs are spiteful, stubborn, sneaky. It's not a personal thing that they're doing. When we leave, often they're stressed, especially in the beginning. They might be going through some separation anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a new puppy, and you happen to catch them and see them peeing, it's really important that we don't get upset with them in the moment, because this can create them being fearful of going to the bathroom near you. And they can try to hide in the house where they go to the bathroom. And so the association they make if we punish them for going to the bathroom is that when they're near you, that they get punished. And so they're going to move away from you and they're going to not trust you as much.
You just have to be so patient when you're potty training a dog. Like that is the key. Patience and consistency.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So they learn by association. And there's no link to that bathroom outside. And so the more that we do the work of helping them in the beginning, have access, go out regularly. I'm in the middle of my very long new project, which is a puppy potty training book. And when I start with new clients with puppies, the two things probably that take the most time and need the most attention in the beginning, that can be the most frustrating, is the house training and the puppy biting. Can really take time for people to understand what to do and how to do it. And if we can make sure that we don't punish them, especially after the accident, there's no chance they're going to learn anything about going outside if they get punished for it. And we have to remember that the communication breakdown, if you punish, can have, not only can the dog want to move away from you and not go to the bathroom near you, both inside and out, depending on how sensitive the dog is. Some dogs have even been known to consume their poop so you don't see it. I mean, that's quite extreme for extreme punishment. And it's not common, but it's so interesting how punishing type behaviors can cause all type of behavioral problems. And I thought it might be good for me to just kind of talk about why I'm a reward-based positive reinforcement trainer, and just kind of a short version on punishment, if that makes sense, Jason.
Yeah, go ahead.
So punishment can and does work in the moment. We're less likely to do something when we're immediately punished. Punishment suppresses behavior, and when it works, it can feel good because it works. So this can reinforce the punisher, and therefore we're more likely to punish in the future because it can work. So I want to start a conversation on punishment, not by saying it doesn't work. It does work, but it's often through pain and fear tactics. No matter the learner, where there's pain and fear tactics that come in when any of us are being punished. And so if you punish a puppy for potty accidents, you're becoming more scary and less trustable. And some of the fallout is they may try to hide, they may actually eat, the things that we went over. So you need to be careful of this fallout in potty training and in anything. Punishment doesn't teach the learner what to do instead of repeating the problem behavior. This is where positive reinforcement is so fun and exciting to figure out, what do I teach instead? How do I teach something different? And punishment often requires an increase in the aversive in order to suppress the behavior. So that's just the short recap on why punishment works, and why, with especially young dogs, it's so important to choose what to do, not to suppress what not to do.
So, Christine, I have a follow-up question if I can.
Yes.
Okay, and this is just a general one. So you come home, or maybe you're there, your puppy has an accident. In that moment, what would you suggest you do?
You come home and you see an accident.
Yeah.
And I would make sure that I don't talk to the dog or tell them that they did anything wrong. I would get the dog so they can't step and make a further mess. So I'd probably move the dog first, depending on where they were. And I would quietly clean it up, and I would put enzymatic cleaner on it to make sure the scent wasn't there anymore. Right. So it would have no connection to the puppy at all. It's all on me.
And that's the end of it.
Yep. And again, all of the details of potty training are much more comprehensive than that. But the short answer to the best way to deal with an accident that you come home to, and if it's an older puppy, you didn't expect them to go, you're later in the training and they did go to the bathroom, I would also consider some separation anxiety issues and training might be going on, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. I see some people on Clubhouse and Twitter requesting to speak. We're just going to finish the little interview, and then we'll open up the floor to questions. So I do see you there, and I do want to honor your questions. But you will just have to wait 1 second. I feel like it was popularized in books or magazines, or maybe by trainers, that if a little puppy has an accident, you rub their nose in it. And that just seems so horrific and alien to me today.
It's horrible, isn't it?
Yeah. I swear that was something that maybe that's that was a thing that was probably taught, or I swear I read it, or maybe even saw it in a movie too, or was suggested in a movie. So,
Yeah. And the old idea of hit them with newspaper, there's just no need to, your puppy is a baby that barely understands anything, that they, they're so new to everything, and we have these preconceived notions of what they should know. And they are super smart and do these cool things that really surprise us. And we extrapolate that into, they should know everything. And it just isn't true.
Oh, I couldn't imagine doing that too. Like when Beaker was a little puppy, she was just so little and precious. She was a baby. They're just babies. You don't get mad at a newborn when you've got to change its diaper. Like it's learning. That's life.
And again, that's the myth that's out in the world, that it's so important for us to change. And I feel really great that, 80% of my clients are new puppy owners. And it's very rare that I get a new puppy client that has been punishing their dog to go to the bathroom.
So good. That's so good.
And it's really good to know, with all the different clients that I get, that many people have understand it. And any of the, I've had, in 8 years, I probably had 2 or 3 that were punishing for it. Mm-hmm. And what's so lovely is they found me, and I chatted with them, and they just quickly understand and felt horrible. And they shouldn't feel so bad, because it's what is out there and what they've been told. Mm-hmm. And what's important is, if you don't know, and if something doesn't make sense, is find people that you trust with the right information.
Like Christine Young.
You're so sweet.
So the third myth we were going to talk about is
the alpha dog.
Yes, the alpha
myth.
Dog. Yes.
And so, and again, as I said, this one is a big deal, and there's a lot we could talk about. So I'm going to kind of do little cliff notes on it.
That's all good.
I'd love to not spend too much time on it unless that's what the questions are, but we already know we have some questions probably about the other topics that we can get to. Mm-hmm. So the idea of the alpha theory, pack dominance, has been debunked for decades. It was something that related in the 70s that thankfully science has moved forward from, but the myth remains a pervasive part of our culture. And I have a bunch of links, including one with the first studies. There's a great YouTube of the guy that is involved in these first studies, talking about the misunderstanding and the debunking of it, which it's really cool that he's involved in this thing, in helping people understand that that's not true. There was mistakes in what they were looking at and putting together, and they learned how to study things better. So the dominance refers to, dogs are not dominant. Dominance refers to a particular outcome of an interaction. It's not a personality trait. There are dominant interactions, but a dog is not a dominant dog. And so don't worry that your dog is trying to take over the world or your household. He's trying to figure out
he's trying to take, that sounds like a cat, actually, not a dog.
Yeah. Your dog's just trying to make good stuff happen and make bad stuff go away, just like we do. It has nothing to do with being alpha. But when you believe it does, it sets all of us up for confrontation. And you can get in trouble with all kinds of interactions with your dog. The short version is to make sure your dog gets good stuff for behaviors that you like, and make sure your dog doesn't get good stuff for behaviors that you don't like. And of course, that's not easy to implement, but having those things in mind can help you not think my dog is dominant, because they're not. And some of the false ideas that come from this are, if your dog misbehaves, are they challenging you? Do you need to be the alpha? Do you need to show dominance? No. There's the idea that if you roll them on their back, you show them that you're alpha. That is a terrible thing to do, and a very scary thing to do, especially for young dogs. And the fallout can be incredible. If your dog jumps on you and you're allowed to, and you let them on furniture, if they sit on you, if they snuggle up and sit on your feet, if they pull the leash, grab the leash, they walk ahead, they hump on you, are they being alpha or dominant? No. They're excited, they're young, they're adolescent, they're being dogs. And you can interrupt me anytime, but I just want
to... No, I'm just love listening to it. Think of a dog. Okay, if a dog cuddles up with you, they're being alpha. No, they're just freaking adorable. And Bunsen sits on our feet too. So
Yep, that's not dominant at all. It's really lovely. If you eat before your dog, are you showing them that you are the alpha dog? No, you're not. when you handle your dog's food, take bones or favorite items away from your dog, are you showing them that you are alpha? Nope. And this is a very dangerous thing that can accelerate resource guarding. And again, we won't go into the detail of resource guarding, but you are not doing anything but causing problems if you approach things that way. And kind of the last one that I'll elaborate a little bit on is if you go through doorways before your dog, does this show them that you are alpha? Nope. And depending on whether your dog lacks confidence or has very little impulse control or what you consider door manners, you got to consider the dog you're working with. And a dog that is insecure and you want to train to have more confidence, the best thing you can do is understand the training that you can do to get that dog to go out the door ahead of you. Because they can't go out the dog ahead of you when they're scared and they want you and they need to follow you. And so there's training to learn at the threshold that's really fun for a dog who's not very confident, that you can be so happy that it went out the door in front of you. And if a dog has impulse control problems and is jumping all over you, yes, you want to teach them how to stay behind for that moment and for that time period. And of course, to be safe in some public situations, you might want to learn how to have your dog walk through the door at the exact same time you do for safety and being able to really see them. So there's no such thing as going through the door first makes me more dominant than my dog. Learning the dog in front of you and what situation you could train to make things go better for everyone is what I want most people to be thinking about.
Are those links on your website, Christine, for that study, or are they just like you just have them somewhere bookmarked on your computer?
I have them. I should have sent them to you, and I can. I'll post one of them in Clubhouse before we go to questions. I have a whole bunch, and if I don't get them posted in Clubhouse or get them to you, Jason, people can reach out to me for any of the links on. I do have the one I wanted to post was that guy that's debunking it that explains it better, but there's also this great study on the guilty look and helping people understand the science behind the guilty look, not just us trainers saying that's not true. There is studies on it.
Okay, I love it. Well, now's the time to say, hey, if you'd like to ask a question to our amazing expert, Christine Young, now's the time to do it. Christine, you're a moderator, so you can move people up and down on Clubhouse, eh?
I can.
Okay, so we'll go Clubhouse, then Twitter, and then Wisdom. So we'll go to Clubhouse first. To somebody who'd like to ask a question there. And then we'll go to Twitter. And of course, if you're on Twitter Spaces and you have a question for Christine, you can request to be a speaker and I'll move you up. There is also the chat feature on Twitter and I can read your question that way. I believe there's a chat feature on Clubhouse as well. Wisdom, no, but you can request to be a speaker on Wisdom. Running 3 different social audio things and they're a little different. So we're good now, Christine.
And I know we had a question, but the person's not raising their hand right now in Clubhouse. So we're good over here. And I'm going to find that link.
There's a raised hand flashing right there. Money Penny Nick. I'm not sure. Okay. Well, once they figure it out, it doesn't look like you're moving them up. So we'll go to Cottage Oven on Twitter Spaces. Hello. Do you have a question for Christine?
Yes, hello. I have had a few dogs in the past, mostly when I was younger, and then one more recently that passed away recently. And I'm looking to get a new puppy now, but I'm thinking about training once I get the new puppy, and everything that I see nowadays talks about crate training. I've never even heard of such a thing until I started looking at this, and it seems like everybody thinks that's the absolute only way you should do things. What's your opinion of that?
I love the question.
That is a good question.
Expand it. Yeah, it's a great question. And it's controversial. So it's a good one to talk about with dog myths because in some countries, you're not even allowed to use crates. And I understand the controversy, but I love the question. And I would expand it to conditioning containment is how I like to make people think about it. And when you figure out what kind of containment your new dog feels comfortable in, or you train them to feel comfortable in, this can make a huge difference, especially in house training that we were just talking about. But in your lifestyle long term, so many of the behavior issues that we have, like dogs who are territorial and enjoy barking at people outside the windows and doors and doorbells ringing and Amazon guys, the more that you have a contained space, whether it's a crate, an exercise room, a bathroom with a gate, there's so many options that you can teach containment in, that you build up their desire to go in there through reward-based training, such that you have this option. So I don't know a trainer who doesn't have multiple different containment options in their house, especially for when guests come, whether it's the package or people coming over. The more that we get our dogs to run to that space when they hear the doorbell and hang out in that space until the guests come in and are comfortable, the more you can create good behaviors happening. So containing dogs in spaces where they enjoy being in there before they have to be in there is one of my favorite things to help people with.
This is Discovery Matters, a collection of stories and insights on matters of discovery that advance life sciences.
Brought to you by the people at Cytiva and driven by our curiosity for all things science. And we've actually heard that it's got real health benefits.
One listener told us that she started running faster thanks to listening to us.
So do it for your health or for your curiosity.
Either way, give us a listen and a rating.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we with our previous dog, there was the master bathroom in the house was a good spot for her, and so we would keep her in there if nobody was going to be home, and she did well in there. And whenever we told her to go in there, she just went in there, no problem, and even anticipated it. So that worked out well. So thank you.
That's great. And you're welcome. And just know with a crate, the approach that you can take, and I'm happy to send you some links, so just reach out to me. With a crate, it's smaller than the room, and so you want to go slow and steady. And the short version is you want to entice your dog in there. When they choose to go in there, great things happen. And the most important thing is that you leave the doors open. You don't close the door until they learn to settle in there, because we want them emotionally to feel good about being in there. And shutting in the door.
I have heard that, yeah. And I was just actually even wondering if could avoid the whole concept entirely of having an actual crate per se. And because, as I said, I'm just not familiar with it, and never have used it before, never seemed to need it before.
And you can totally avoid it, but I recommend with a young dog taking the time to train it when they're young. It doesn't mean you have to use it. And all of the crates in my house, the door is always open and it's a choice for my dog. But anytime my dog needs to go to the vet or groomer or anywhere he needs to be contained, he knows that he's safe in there. He's not anxious about being shut into such a small space. And so it's a really good thing, whether you need it or not, at home for yourself. If you train it while they're young, it's easier to train while they're young, and it lasts a lifetime.
Great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you for the wonderful question, and thanks for the great answer, Christine.
Sure.
Okay, let's go over to Clubhouse for a question from Clubhouse.
Hi, Money
Hi.
Penny. Sorry, I didn't see you
Chris.
earlier.
That's okay. A sticky button, I think. If you PTR, you'll see my photos changed into a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel.
Look at that face.
He's very cute, I know. So this is Jensen. He's a 6-year-old Cavalier King Charles from a rescue who had coughing, kennel cough and horrible things when we got him 6 years ago. And he's got a elder Cavalier with him. Just so you know, there's 2 of them in the house. Exactly a year ago, he started yelping for no apparent reason and defecating and seemed to have got incontinent urinary problems. He was taken to the vet. millions of different types of tests and bloods and MRIs and all the rest of it. None of them very conclusive, but they found some fluid on the brain. They ruled him out of syringomyelia, which is common in Cavaliers, but he'd lost the feeling in his rear legs, particularly the left leg, and he was declared incontinent, urinary. And he's been wearing nappies for about 6 or 7 months, which he's been fine with. A couple of months ago, I took the nappies off because I realized he was probably being sneaky. And in fact, it encouraged him to go outside, and he started to be able to toilet outside the house. However, in the last 2 months, I don't know whether he's being cheeky. I don't know if there's anything wrong with him. He's eating normally. He's doing everything normally. He looks absolutely normal, but he has resumed starting to defecate in secret little places in the house and urinary as well. What do I do?
Oh, wow. That's a lot. I'm so sorry that you're going through all of this. And I probably have more questions than answers in the sense of how old?
He's 6.
And how long has the
So for over a year, he's had what they term as a neurological problem of unknown sort of outset, where some days, some weeks, you can pinch his back leg and he can't feel it. Other days, he's absolutely fine. He's come out of nappies. So he started toileting absolutely normally and has now reverted back to some incontinence again. He gets very embarrassed, runs into his bed. He knows he's done wrong. I'm not reprimanding. I'm just clearing up. What do I do?
Okay. So, what I would do is make sure you go back to the beginning of house training as if he was a puppy, such that you're doing all of the heavy lifting. That includes an enzymatic cleaner, cleaning everything in the house with a black light to make sure the scent is not in the house, and getting on a schedule to bring him out during the times that you know he is a good time for him to get to the bathroom. It's I would have more questions and would prefer to do like a whole consult on it so that I make sure that I'm advising you from the place of really knowing everything that's going on. And patience that you must have with all that you've gone through with this poor guy is something that's really important. But anytime we have a marking issue or a reverting issue, we want to go back to the basics and make sure you understand all of the basic information that includes things like when he goes to the bathroom outside, highly reward him, bring 3 to 5 delicious treats. So when he's going to the bathroom outside, you're just like, yay, you did it. And that way he's more likely to seek that.
Yeah.
And there's lots of little bits and pieces within the house training that we can go over so that you know, because the patience, and I have so many more questions on his body language that's showing you that he feels bad. You know, like we talked about earlier, I don't know if you heard the beginning of the room. We want to make sure that you're happy when you're cleaning up. So there's no reason for him to be like, ooh, mom's mad. Even though you're not mad at him, they're so sensitive. And so when you're cleaning up, you can kind of grin and bear it and be like, oh, yay, I get to do this again. And that
fortunately, I don't mind. I've got no sense of smell and taste after my COVID, so it's not so bad, actually.
And just reach out to me if you need more, but hopefully those beginner tips can get you in a new direction.
He's a little soul. He's a real resource hoarder. He's very delicate. He's very big eyes and, oh dear, mummy, I need some love, as you can tell by the photo. He just looks as though he's sorry all the time. But thank you so much, because that rewarding for him going outside is an important thing I could start to do. So I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. And find a special high value treat that's only for bathroom outside.
Oh, his brother will have to have one as well, though.
That's
he's
fine.
A food
That's
monster.
totally fine. Yeah.
Just like siblings.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, we're going to go back to Twitter. Kathy L., you have a question.
Hi. Yes, I do. And thank you for taking my question. I have, first of all, your training method sounds heavenly. It sounds so smart and wonderful. And I just feel we're so fortunate to have access to something like this. So thank you for spending the time. I have a large Labrador mix female dog. She's about 5 years old now, and she's always been extremely frightened of the outside world. I adopted her straight out of the shelter, and she was fine at the shelter, but when we got her home, her real personality kind of, came out. And we had to go through several different trainers and training sessions, one-on-one, to kind of get her to a place where she would just kind of act like a normal dog, somewhat normal. Now with us, she's fine. She loves us. She feels this is her happy place, her home and everything. But when I have to take her to the vet, or when I have to take her out of the house, which I try not to do very often because she is so frightened, it is massively difficult for me to get her out of the car. We do have another dog, and when we have the other dog with us, it's easier to get her out of the car, but I don't always want to bring the other dog with me because she's almost as large as Mila is, and I'm like 5'2" and with an 80-pound dog to handle two of them. It would really be nice to have an approach to train her that it's safe for her to get out of the car. It's not going to hurt her.
Hi, this is Ross, the host of Smells Like Humans, a show about interesting and quirky human behavior. We bring humor, empathy, and warmth to topics such as relationships, dating, work, self-compassion, weddings, phobias, aging parents, travel mishaps, death, and many more. Ever wonder what happens at a cuddle party? We talk about it. Free-range kids in restaurants? We've got some thoughts. Bedtime stories for adults? We're on it. Light, fun, unscripted conversation and personal stories. Please join us by clicking the link in the show notes.
To both get in and out of the car, or just getting out?
Getting out. Getting in is fine. That's another thing, is she identifies my car as her safe place wherever we're at in the vet's parking lot or wherever we are. She knows that car, that's the safe place. She really doesn't want to leave the car. She just refuses to get out, and I end up having to go from side to side or calling one of the vet techs out to my car for help in getting her out.
Okay. I'm going to suggest again, like I did with any training, the patience and repetitions that you can do to help her is probably going to take longer than you ever imagined because of it sounds like you've reached out to try to get a lot of help and you've tried a lot of things. And I'll give you kind of the short version of how I would work with a client with it. And we can just kind of chat a little bit more about at least getting you started on something regular to do, in the sense that if you haven't been advised already, one of the most important things you need to do is set up situations that she can be successful in without the vet being involved, and getting in and out of the car with it being in the safest place, whether it's in the garage, in the driveway, getting in and out of the car through repetition training, through creating rewards and safety and setups that create the movement of the behavior, and getting the behavior on cue in safe spaces. And then you're going to build up to the vet place. Does that make sense in general?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. It's a little bit time consuming, but yes, I understand
it's so time. And that's the thing that, like, I want you to think about when you have time. You're going to do a 10-minute session, and maybe some days on the weekends you can do 2 10-minute sessions, but just think about spending 10 minutes. And you can set yourself up and is it a garage or a driveway that you have?
We have both. I park it's an SUV in the garage. And when I put her in the car, it's usually from the garage door that goes to the house and putting her in there. Great. So it's completely
great,
isolated. Yeah.
Wonderful. Because what you're going to be able to do is get the movement and the cue inside the safe garage. and you're going to get lots of repetitions of that. And I would start with a new cue, because your cue might now be, let's go, time to go, out of the car, whatever, come on. You probably have a whole bunch of things of like, please. So you're not going to use any of those words, and you're not going to use any words until you get the behavior through a reward system, until you get her happily releasing. And we want to make sure of things like how healthy, how often you want your dog to jump. Do you want a ramp? Do you want steps? So there's lots to consider in it. But I just want you to have that big picture of the repetitions of, let's say that you decide the cue is, you could pick anything, but some sort of fun thing to say that that makes you smile when you say it. And then when you say that word, a favorite word of starburst means get out of the car, whatever it is, you're creating the behavior inside the garage, and you're getting it through potentially luring and shaping with food. You're eventually adding that favorite cue to it. And you want lots of repetitions in the garage before you do it in the driveway. And you're just going to think about this behavior building slowly, that she starts looking forward to. I get those favorite treats when I get to go do that 10-minute practice. Is that helpful?
Yes. Yeah. I've done this a few times in the garage, and I felt that she really latched onto it right away in the garage, even with the garage door up and cars driving by. As long as she was in the garage and wasn't being asked to go from the garage to the driveway, which is another issue with her. She's just so frightened of everything. Okay. So then once we graduate after a bazillion repetitions from the garage to the driveway, and to the driveway, do I go to another parking, like the vet's office maybe, or?
No, that's way too quick. And so you need to do everything slow. Like I can just see, because with the door open and her being concerned with all those sounds around, the door's going to be a little bit open. The car's going to be halfway out of the driveway. I mean, this is counter conditioning that takes a really long time to develop. And one thing that you probably have talked to your vet about is this difficulty of being out in the world that some dogs have, the behavior medications, and getting a good trainer in your area that understands behavior medications and vet behaviorists, where there may be some things that once you talk to someone that can work with you intimately, you might want to look at the big picture of this, so that medication is part of the relaxation process that she might be able to go through, if that makes sense.
And by medications, are you speaking of things like behavioral medications? Like,
yes.
Okay.
And have you talked to any vets about behavior medications?
Well, we tried like doggy Prozac, and that did not work with her because it made her more frightened inside the house. It altered her. It just was not productive at all. She went, she's an eater. She loves to eat. And she went to the kitchen. She wouldn't even go in the kitchen. And it was like, and you could see the fear on her face. Like she was completely almost disoriented. It just completely altered her personality. So we stopped that right away. And then, so we've just been trying, high value treats. And to be honest with you, I've just I don't want to say given up, but I've just backed off a lot on that, because it just became like
stressful.
That was her constitution. Yeah. And that's just how she's always going to be. And I didn't want to stress her out every single day or every weekend or whatever. And it was expensive too, very expensive. So I just kind of felt like, okay, well, this is a frightened dog. That's just our lot in life with her. We still love her. She'll always be my dog. I'm not going to ever give her up, just because of that, and we're going to have to live with it.
Do you have mobile vets in your area? I'm sure you've considered that.
We do. I'm very attached to the vets that we're in Orange County. So yes, we have mobile vets.
I'm in San Diego.
We're in an urban area, but I don't, in fact, I'm looking at this little profile on the Spaces, the Nest, and it says, speaking with Sarah Miles, Stacy Lemke, Kylie Campbell. Stacy was our trainer for a while.
Oh, good. And she's great.
She's great. She's fabulous. She was actually the one that made the most progress with Mila, because Stacy would bring her darling Australian Shepherd to our one-on-one sessions, and once Mila, he was like 2 or 3 times with Stacy, and then once Mila got used to that and saw Stacy approaching the car with her dog, Mila was out the car, no problem.
Great,
she was still,
great.
once she got out, she was still on high alert, looking around at the horizon like, oh great, what kind of bombs are going to drop, but she would at least get out of the car without expressing her glands, which she does, which is just horrible.
She's so lucky to have you, and I think I love that you're questioning all the advice and trying to figure out what fits into our lifestyle. And the top things that I would consider is do a little research on what a vet behaviorist is and if it's worth the investment for what you're going through. And myself or Stacy can recommend some in the LA area for you, as well as I know you love your vet, but people like Stacy and other trainer friends of mine in Orange County can help you find a really good mobile vet so that you don't have to do extra work. And it's okay to keep your dog inside and safe and enriched inside. It's okay.
Yeah. Thank you. No, I appreciate that. And I agree with that. And that's also why, we had lost our second dog, our 16-year-old dog, in January, and we weren't going to get another dog just because we're just going to give ourselves a break. But it became incredibly clear that we had to, because Mila was just not a happy dog by herself. And once we adopted this other second dog, her whole world lit up again, and she's in better shape. She's playful. She's a little more outgoing.
Hey, that's so good.
Yeah, but so that's another thing you have to think about too. But anyway, so I agree. I just would like her to be a little more comfortable getting out of the car, because there are times when unfortunately we live in a fire zone in the falls, and if there's a fire up here in the hills behind us, I have to get out of here, and I have to be able to do it fast. So I need to. That's a long story there, but I need to.
Try the inside the garage with a new cue. And reach out to myself or Stacy if you need more support.
Here we are restoring the indigenous and ancestral knowledge of navigating the inner road and growing into your medicine. We are re-indigenizing how we grief tend and approach shadow work, decolonizing our spiritual path so we may restore an indigenous and ancestral lens that reveals the hidden meanings in your experiences and re-empowers you to walk your path with greater knowing. Join us in the oral tradition of storytelling and conversations with traditional wisdom keepers.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And I will certainly try the much slower method of, the graduated method of the garage only, and then the garage half out, and then the garage driveway.
Yep.
Yeah.
Great
it's
tips.
Hard. Yeah, it's really hard, but it can be really rewarding in the long run if you just make it part of your practice.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I
nice
really
talking
do.
to you.
And
nice talking to you.
And Kathy, if you're not on Clubhouse, Christine has a club on Clubhouse called what is it? Dog Lovers, Christine? Yes. Yeah. So we don't have shows with trainers all the time. And that might be something you might want to think about, is downloading the Clubhouse app and following Christine on Clubhouse too.
And you can hear
that's
Sarah
a great idea.
and Stacy and everybody over on Clubhouse in the Dog Lovers room.
Right. Yeah. They've got a good, vibrant community there. You bet. We're lucky to snag Christine for this chat. So it doesn't look like there's any more questions on Clubhouse. Is that correct, Christine? We have a question. So. We have a question in the chat from Twitter. So if that's okay, we'll go to that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So Mara Flip was wondering if you have a couple tips to help dogs with separation anxiety. And what little bit more context. She screams bloody murder when I leave the house. So, I know.
And as usual, I have more questions than answers. And separation anxiety is rough, similar to the last gal that we were talking about. The patience that it takes to help them feel okay is the incremental training is key. And so the most important thing that I would recommend is finding a great trainer. And you have lots of choices with, I have a really good friend that does the private training that is the most expensive. She has courses that are very thorough, and I can send you that link. Reach out to me. Her name's Moira. And I think her website might be separationanxietydog.com.
Okay.
But there's also, you can find other trainers in your area if you have other issues beyond the separation anxiety that you want another trainer to come to you as well. But most separation anxiety trainers work online, and the patience is really key. And unfortunately, with dogs that are really struggling with it, you can't leave and make progress. So finding community support through friends and family to help, and bringing them to friends and family and helping them as you're doing the formal separation anxiety training is really important in order to make the progress. But if you connect with separation anxiety trainers, the success stories that you can hear about from other people who have gone through, whether it's the online program or private training, it's amazing the difference that you can make with these dogs. And they really need a lot of help and support. And they can have a very fulfilling life once you get through it, that you won't forget that you've done all the work, but you'll never know it's the same dog once you get through it.
Okay, I'm just double checking to see if there's a response to that. We never leave her. Thank you. Oh, we never leave her. I'm not sure. It's tough to do this via chat. So I'll just say to Mariflip, I've given you Christine's handle on Twitter. And she can probably give you some links to those folks, right?
Yes, and it's great that they're not leaving her, and that's progress, even though it doesn't feel like it, and your life feels pretty locked down, and you feel like you don't have a life, which is really hard. But investing in a good trainer or doing the work with the online program that's a little less expensive, you will make progress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of it's more via audio. You can give great advice, but until you actually do it, nothing really will change.
Yeah.
We can talk all we want, but this advice has been excellent. So I'm going to throw out one more call to the folks on Twitter, Wisdom, or Clubhouse. If you have a question for Christine, put up your hand on Clubhouse, request the mic on Twitter, or come up to the Wisdom thing, whatever it's called on Wisdom, if you'd like to chat.
Yeah, we need someone over on Wisdom today. We had all three places last time.
We did. I
would love it if they asked again over on Wisdom today.
I know, that was really cool. There's people here, but some people are driving, like they'll put on social audio and they'll drive, or maybe they're cooking supper on the elliptical. We don't know. Okay, doesn't look like anybody's biting on Clubhouse.
Jason, what stood out the most for you today?
All of it is so good for me to hear, because our first golden retriever we had, her name was Callan, and she was my heart dog, but we didn't do anything properly with her. And I subscribed to a whole bunch of myths before, and this was a while ago, right? Like, this was when there was TV shows where you had to be the alpha, and like their books were telling you to do all this crazy stuff. So once we got Bunsen, that's when we took Bunsen to a place locally called Waggles, and they train in the exact same way that you train, Christine, like, very positive reinforcement, no punishment. If you can, like, obviously there may be 1 in a million chance you'd use punishment, but 99.9% of the time use just like a positive relationship with your dog. And it was just so much better. Like, Bunsen is such a good boy. And then we did the same thing with Beaker, even though it was really tough during the pandemic. So I guess just to wrap up, all of the ideas and every time that you speak, it just makes me feel better about the choices that we made with Bunsen and Beaker, with how we train them. And there's also like the being consistent, right? Putting the work in. It's hard. It's really hard to train a dog. It is not easy. Some dogs, it's easier than others, and that's just a good thing to keep telling people.
Totally. And trying things consistently for like 3 weeks, 2 to 10 minutes a day, 5 to 10 treats on one little new thing that you want to change until you do it for a few weeks and get those repetitions in. If you can do that, you'll be amazed at what what will last and you won't have to do anymore. The things that do take the longest and more extra work, I would say, is a dog who pulls a lot. Learning how to loose leash walk takes a lot of time, and getting that emergency recall. Those are two things that take a tremendous amount of dedication and work to get those working consistently. But all of the other little things that you might be struggling with, you're able to, over a few weeks' time, if you are consistent, to change that behavior pattern. And it's just so exciting that we can do this, that they're willing and they're excited. And you can walk them less if you're training them more, because that mental stimulation is so important to them, and they'll take a nice nap afterwards.
They get exhausted after, like Beaker a couple months ago finished level 2 obedience, whatever that is, wherever you are. And after puppy school, she would just be absolutely destroyed. And this is like the infinite energy Beaker. She would come home and flop and go right to sleep because her brain was just cooked from all of the thinking. I love it. Well, it looks like we're out of questions, and it looks like we can wrap things up. Christine, thank you so much for being our guest today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. This was fun.
You betcha. So we do a little wrap up, and that's just for, really the recording purposes. So here we go. Thank you so much for Christine Young, who was our guest today for Pet Chat. On Clubhouse, she opened up her club, Dog Lovers, and is hosting our Pet Chat there. If you're in Clubhouse, give us a follow, Bunsen and Beaker. We do have a room called a club called the Paw Pack, and we run 2 audio shows that we simulcast from Twitter to Clubhouse. So if you're in Clubhouse and that's your jam, you can listen to some of our shows in the Paw Pack. Christine, is there a website people can check out with your stuff?
Yes, it's the Puppy Care Company, and I did a terrible job with links today. So if anyone needs any of the links I talked about, I'm happy to DM them to you, and I'll get some over to you, Jason, in case they ask you.
That's great.
And thepuppycarecompany.com, if they reach out to me there, I'm happy to help in any way that I can.
Awesome. And keep in mind, Twitter folk, Clubhouse has a lot of rooms, a lot of shows about pets and pet training. I don't know how many are happening on Twitter besides just us. So if you want more, check out Clubhouse. This Saturday, I don't have the ad ready. I have the event ready. I am fortunate to be part of this big group of social audio hosts. And we are doing this thing on Saturday where we're connecting all 4 social audio sites together in this great big mega chat. Clubhouse, we have somebody who understands Clubhouse more than me, a bunch of people who know Twitter, LinkedIn, and then Wisdom. So that's going to be on Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern. I think that's all my promos. So we'll wrap things up. To the people who ask questions, thank you. And to those of you who are listening, you could be anywhere in the world, but you're listening to dog training, and that's important. One more time, Christine, thank you so much for being our guest today and for hosting us on Clubhouse.
Of course. Thank you. It was great. Hopefully we'll do it again.
I think so too. Okay, take care, everybody.
Take care, Jason.
Okay, take care, everybody. Shutting down in 3, 2, 1.